Adios, soldiers. Coffee, coffee, coffee. I'm letting my baby millennial status take the reins more and more as I get older, as my entire life now revolves around coffee and wine. I'm a cusper, so I'm like an elder Gen Z, and that part of me is cringing, don't worry. If anything, being in my late 20s makes me realize that at all times I am both the parent and the child. Guys, we all did it. We've all made it past the worst 10 weeks of the year, and now the sun is going to incrementally start rising earlier and earlier every day. And I can feel my seasonal depression lifting as we speak. February was a rough month. Not only was it dark and cold, but also I have just been so busy. I've been here, there, and everywhere. I've been doing things. I have been making stuff, and I haven't had a lot of time to read. So this month is actually going to be a little bit of a shorter video, hopefully, if I don't ramble on too long, because I only read 5 books in February, which to some people, maybe that's a lot, but considering that like my lowest is usually 6, I do have some catching up to do if I am going to hit my Goodreads goal for the year, is all I'm saying. To sum it up, it was a bit of a time. Like, I didn't like a apparently classic of a genre that I happen to love. I got a book about some fairy stuff that was weird even for me. And then everybody else in the rest of the books that I read was like impossibly horny. So if you'd like to find out the cause of my emotional distress this month, without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in, and let's go over the 5 books that I managed to read in February. What? What? Oh, I have a veritable army of bobby pins in my hair right now, and you're telling me that you can't stick to your assigned seat for like 20 minutes? Because February is well known for being an abysmal month, I wanted to make sure that I was getting my serotonin from somewhere, and so I decided that I was going to read a bunch of romance novels this month. And so the first romance novel that I finished was Wooing the Witch Queen by Stephanie Burgess. This is a cozy comedic fantasy that was sent to me by Tor Bramble, and I really enjoyed myself with this. Queen Saskia is a witch who recently overthrew her evil uncle, but then has to keep up appearances by being this evil witch queen when really all she wants to do is just like mess around with some alchemy in her science lab. But when she hires a supposed dark wizard to help organize her library, it turns out Fabian is actually an undercover magicless royal from the opposing kingdom. He was trying to escape his evil uncle and just accidentally yes-anded his way into this witch queen's castle, and now they're both trying to pretend to be somebody else while also kind of falling in love. This is the theater kid energy that I want. Because of her magic, Saskia just has a murder of crows available to her at all times. They're also her familiars. She has a sick magical library and a crown of bones. And Fabian, while being one of the most man-written by a woman I've ever read, so sweet and so charming, and he's just like skinny and tall and awkward and like doesn't really know what to do and just like kind of fumbling his way through it. And he like loves poetry, and he's just like really kind and nice, and like, hey, you know what? We love a nice, pretty boy, right? Who doesn't? And this also does one of my favorite things ever, which is when fantasy novels invent modern day things like pens and FaceTime. And despite this being billed as a fluffy, silly fantasy novel, it actually does have some pretty dark themes, including like having the responsibility of a nation at war on your shoulders and also going into childhood and familial abuse. But it balances itself out fairly well between its more grounded, heavy topics and its more frivolous scenes. That being said, with all of the cuteness and the blushing and the like, ooh, maybe she likes me, these people are horny. The way his lips parted sent a bolt of fire through me. Like, girl, it is Tuesday at like 1 p.m. Get a grip. And yet the romance scenes are not explicit. So not that that's bad, and I think that's quite good if you want more romance that, you know, oh, we know that the characters are like getting it on, but like we don't need to be in the room. Just felt like the way that they were talking, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna be blown away. It's gonna be like a slip and slide in here. It's so gross. I guess I'll just have to use my imagination. Although it was a little heavy-handed on the, like, men hate women in power, we girl bosses need to stick together. Which, like, true, but also cringe. My major complaint is actually the ending, so if you don't want spoilers, skip ahead like 30 seconds. It ended in this perfect, like, well, we've stopped all the bad guys, and everyone believes us, and everything is just good to go. No more war. Fantastic. Let's all head down to Taco Bell. I wish this had been, like, a gritty fantasy, or it had been a little bit more frivolous, but that's also just my jaded ass us, having read horrible war fantasy books for the last decade. Very cute, very fun. Reminds me of Dreadful by Caitlin Rosakis, but with romance. So I definitely will be picking up the other two of the Queens of Villainy series. So there I was, having freshly finished Witch Queen, high off of the fumes of requited love. It was a dark and dreary night. I was missing my girlfriend and I wanted to keep my high going. So I decided to pick up another romance novel. And this is one that my girlfriend read a couple of months ago and really liked. And so I thought, all right, now's the time. And maybe next time we get together, we can talk about it. And that's what we did. And it was great. Oh my gosh, get yourself a partner who reads the same books as you do. So I finally picked up and loved A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saft, a YA Regency era, vaguely historically accurate fantasy novel with thread magic and the best love interest since freaking William Herondale. Our main character, Neve, is a dressmaker and seamstress that has a magic that allows her to weave emotions and memories into her garments. So when the king of the neighboring kingdom of Avaland asks her to tailor the royal wedding, of course she jumps at the chance. But when she gets to the palace, she realizes there are many more pieces in play than she imagined, including court politics, actual political upheaval, a very nosy gossip columnist, and the groom himself being definitely not who she imagined him to be. This is a grumpy sunshine done well. I love Kit. In the beginning, he's so prickly and standoffish, but then once you get to know him, you realize that he's just really awkward and shy, and he's a recovering alcoholic and is having a lot of problems with that in now being back at court. And I really love Neve. Like, yes, she's a little naive at first, but she catches on very fast, and she's so sweet and kind and is always looking out for other people. And also, these are two bisexual icons. Like, the moment when they're in the greenhouse and she like tells him and he's like, oh, you're like me. I was like, oh my God, my heart. And yet again, these two, H0rny Jail. Like, my God, you guys, calm down. And like, I understand, you know, two hot people and, you know, they do get it on, which like good for them. But also, I'm in your head the entire time and I need you to relax. And really great, well-built out side characters. Like, I love Miriam and Sophia and the Queen. And then like, of course, Sinclair, like all of their dynamics are so wonderful. Like, I kind of wish we got more of them as a friend group. There's big themes of not repeating history and what it feels like to be a part of a family that's caused harm and trying to actively undo that. My main complaint with this is that this is vaguely historically accurate because it follows Irish and English issues of the early 1800s. In the 1810s and 20s, Ireland and England had formed the Kingdom of Great Britain under some duress because of the Act of Union in 1801, and there was a great deal of economic hardship and poverty in Ireland that led to a lot of immigration to England, but then at the same time, they were still suffering from the Napoleonic Wars and the War of 1812, so there was a lot of tension there. Also, there was like more Catholic emancipation in government. There was a lot of social and societal unrest, and so this does follow all of those beats, but then like not quite all of them. So it was just a little weird to be like, hold on, what is real and what isn't? Which, like, I get it, it's a fantasy book, okay? It doesn't have to follow exactly the same beats as history, but it was a little off-putting to just be like, did that just happened? Did that really happen? Though I did really, really like the ending. Oh, the whole wedding sequence is just so beautiful. Like, I almost cried. So even though her themes were incredibly on the nose, and I think this would have been stronger if she hadn't been trying to match it historically beat for beat, what a lovely YA book. Like, what a beautiful novel. Thank you very much to Wednesday Books for sending me a copy of this. I must take a sip of coffee to fortify myself for this next one, because I have a feeling I'm gonna have to get my swords out. Okay, so look, my favorite book is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. It's a weird book. And every time that I say that, there is inevitably somebody in my comment section saying, you should try Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. You're gonna love it. It's exactly the same vein. It's like magical and weird, and it's like a place that exists outside of space and time. And so I finally picked it up and read it. And I didn't really like it. I'm so sorry to Susanna Clarkians, to Piranesi heads. I don't know what you guys call yourself as a fandom. This just didn't hit for me as much as I had hoped, and I'm like really mad about it. This is a lyrical modern fantasy that follows Piranesi, who is a man of some variety, who lives in a labyrinth full of statues and tides. As far as he knows, he's the only living person in this place, along with one other, who he calls the Other, who's an older man who sometimes speaks to Piranesi about what he sees in the labyrinth and all of the different rooms and statues that he comes comes across. But one day Piranesi comes across evidence that there may be another in the labyrinth, and the entire history becomes unraveled and secrets are revealed. And now I can say positive things about this. Okay, love the world, love the writing, it's so beautiful. Also love this idea of like an endless stone labyrinth full of statues and clashing tides. But I felt like the naming conventions of a lot of these things were kind of annoying. And like usually I like overly flowery, overly metaphorical language, but it like kind of made my head hurt. Everything is capitalized, like it's important. And like, again, usually I like that kind of thing. But when like every second word is capitalized, it kind of loses its charm pretty fast. I also didn't like the other. Like I felt he was really wasted potential. He's supposed to be mysterious and compelling, but really I just find him to be a pompous asshole. And the idea of like a gap in space-time is a fun idea, but I just felt like it was done so boringly. At the beginning, it's like, oh, it's this mysterious other dimension and we have to do this ritual and do all these things. And then by the end of the book, we are popping in and out like it is a corner store 7-Eleven. Like, what are the rules to this world? And I've seen theories that this is an abuse allegory and that it's actually all about mental illness and that the main character is like making this up in his head as a way to cope with past trauma. But I don't think that this book either makes it clear enough or doesn't make it clear enough that that's what's happening. Like it's trying to be ambiguous, but I don't think the ambiguity works. I've actually noticed something funny is that everyone I talk to that loves Piranesi hates the Starless Sea, but everyone I know that likes the Starless Sea doesn't love Piranesi. So I wonder if it's like the order that you read them in matters. Maybe if I had read this first, it would have really clicked with me, and then maybe I wouldn't have liked Starless Sea is, but I don't know. We'll just never know. This is a other dimension that we are not going to be able to travel to. I herefore will continue to stand the Starless Sea and will not remove my tattoo. Please don't cancel me. Next up is a book that by the time this video comes out will already be out, so you can go down to the store and use your own hard-earned money dollars to purchase a copy of one of the weirdest, freakiest books that I've read, and like not in a sexy, well, a little bit in a sexy way. Freaky, neither derogatory nor complimentary. If you've been on the internet at all in the last couple of days, you most likely have seen people shilling for The River Has Roots by AModelWho'sRead, which I was as well. I did videos, I did photos. I wanted to talk about this book because this was one of my most anticipated reads of this year, and when Tor.com sent it to me, I had a little freak out, okay? It's normal. But like, damn, they really let AModelWho'sRead fly her freak flag in this book. And like, did I love it? Yes. The River Has Roots is her adult debut. It's a little novella that is described as a lyrical murder ballad about the bond of two sisters who live on the edge of fairy and how that bond is tested when one of them gets a fairy lover and the town starts to slowly turn against them. Lovely writing, as expected from AModelWho'sRead. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. It's magical without being too whimsical. Like, it still feels fairly grounded. And the magic is grammar based. So like, as an English major, like, does that make me a wizard? This is actually a major gripe I have with this book, is that it is too short. Like, I want to know more about this language-based magic. Like, the way that she talks about how conjugation is transfiguration and how like different ways of speaking, if you speak with like a proper grammar like the academics do in the city, that's a different type of magic than like the slang magic of the countryside. Conjugation is transformation, is based on time, like how a berry was once a flower, or like how the Fae can't sing, how Rin, which is the Fae, falls in love with Esther for the first time because Esther is singing this beautiful riddle song, and this lovely juxtaposition of the two sisters singing against the magic of fairy. Rin is a non-binary entity. Basically, like the first time we meet Rin, they are a storm. Sometimes they're vaguely human, sometimes they're kind of an animal, sometimes they're just kind of like there somehow. Like at one point they talk about how they can't be described other than a season or the weather. Arcadia is described as a place without borders, but it does have borders. It's just that those borders keep changing based on where your perception of the borders are. Also, we get a sex scene where one of them is a harp. I mean, party. Very sweet ending. I love a cyclical moment. We love a ballad callback. Yet we also chopped down a bleeding tree, which was a little bit more fucked up than I was expecting. Very Grimm's fairy tale. but like I loved it. And lastly, another book that should be out on shelves by now is, oh wow, the sun came out. Yes, God, please. I've been so sad. I need that vitamin D. I was sent this last book by HarperCollins, and I think that we can all agree that Ava Reid is single-handedly bringing back dystopian books because A Fable for the End of the World was absolutely insane and just what I wanted. Sapphic YA dystopian climate thriller romance novel in the vein of The Hunger Games and The Last of Us. In this failing future world wrecked by eco-terrorism, The Lamb's Gauntlet is a live stream spectacle that is watched across the world. Anissa has been chosen as the next lamb to forgive her mother's debts, and Melano is the assassin sent to kill her. But as the gauntlet begins, a series of incidents both separate Melano from her overlords and bring her and Anissa together, and now the two of them have to rely on one another to survive the wilds and hopefully escape the system that's been setting them up. Apocalyptic wasteland, mutated creatures, corporatocracy, enemies to lovers. Ava's writing is known to be fantastical and whimsical, yet this is the most grounded and sophisticated of any of their books so far. These are incredibly compelling characters full of rage and stubbornness and determination, especially against survival. What will you do to survive? How will you adapt? Melano is a genetically modified hunting machine that is slowly growing a conscience and rebelling against those who built her. And Anissa is a survivalist who never complains and always is looking for the good in people despite never trusting anyone. Very interesting character. The two of them together are really great. Like, they work off one another really well. My favorite scene with them is probably when they blow up a cabin and then make out afterwards. This was unexpectedly about grief and how remembering and grieving are like important parts of what makes us human, because it would make sense that those are uncomfortable, so you would want to just numb everything out. But it is the pain of remembering that makes life worth living. And this also could just be me because I haven't read a YA dystopian in a while, but it's interesting to see the shift of what dystopian now means. Like, we have a corporatocracy where like Schmamajan basically runs the world, how that contributes to society. And then we also have like a streaming world where everybody's streaming all the time and like what that does to your psyche. The ending itself was a little rushed, but also like it was really bleak. Like, I finished it and then out loud said, oh my God, that's the ending? So not a happy or hopeful ending. If anything, it's pretty haunting and bleak. And then also there were a couple of subplots that I felt were a little underutilized. Like, our main character being a streamer, I thought should have been way more heavily included. I'm still having big thoughts about it a couple weeks after I finished it. So if you want to get right back into your Hunger Games era, I would highly recommend picking this up. And that is that on that. Oh, my battery has 12%. Okay, we're gonna try and speed run this ending. So there are the 5 books that I managed to read in February. Please leave down below what you finished in February. If you also read some of these, I want to hear your thoughts about them. I am slightly disappointed in myself this month, but also like, I've been busy, okay? My God. Although, unexpected perk of only reading 5 books this month, this video took me way less time to film. So I guess there's that. I did also get a new bookshelf, which is very exciting. So now all of my TBR pile is officially off the floor for now. Also, bonus, I found a bookstore gift card in my wallet yesterday that I got for Christmas that I had forgotten about. So get in, loser. We're going to the bookstore. Oh, wow, that second coffee is like really kicking in. I'm sweating. You know where to click to like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!